from his studios in New York, it's time for Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Here's your host, Dan Tortora.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. We're inside of significant sound bites, and it's all about Syracuse running backs today. Dante Strickland was just on the show live, and he's heading off to the Arizona Cardinals. Jerome Smith is here with us now. He had his opportunity in the NFL, had his opportunity with the Atlanta Falcons, did some good things, got into coaching and helping young minds on and off the field, and now all of a sudden he's over at Morgan State, and he has an opportunity to connect with his former running backs coach, the head coach of Morgan State, Tyrone Wheatley, as Jerome steps into Tyrone's old job when he was at Syracuse, which is being a running backs coach. So it's funny how small the world is and how things just seem to work out for good people. And we got Jerome Smith on the show this morning. Jerome, how are we doing today?
Dan, what's going on, brother, man? I'm doing well.
Now, you and I talk all the time about how good God is and how you just got to bide your time. It's God's time. It's not your time. Just what you can say about that. Keeping your faith, staying strong, staying blessed, and getting an opportunity like this.
Yeah, man. You know, whenever you work hard and, you really put your head down and really don't look forward to any type of outcome or any type of, win out of it, and you just work hard and do good and do things right for people, good things come to you, man. And it's honestly how it happened. Coach Wheatley's had the job, I think, since January or February, I want to say, and we spoke once, and, man, I was getting ready to coach high school football for my first year, so I was getting prepared for that, and Coach Wheatley gave me a call one evening and asked me what I was doing and how I was feeling, and, told me there was an opportunity for me to come here and, make a name for myself.
And to have that opportunity at Morgan State to connect with Coach Wheatley again, just what you can tell me about that. I mean, I talk about, obviously it's important to keep those bridges, to keep those connections alive because you never know what's going to happen. And the world is small, especially, when it comes to the world of sports. It's maybe even tinier than, the world itself. Is the sports world is just very, very tight-knit. Just what you could say about, Tyrone Wheatley being your former running backs coach and never forgetting about you and giving you that phone call.
Oh, man, the deal with Coach Wheatley, man, ever since my freshman year there, because he wasn't the coach that recruited me. I got recruited by Stan Drayton as a running back coach. So when I came in, Coach Wheatley was there, and immediately, man, he told me I would be his project. Just because I wasn't like the line. I was a little bit bigger than Twine. I was a little bit bigger than Tyson, and we all had kind of different things in our game. But he just told me that I would be his project and he would work with me. And man, he put a lot of time in and helped me learn the game. And so once I started to learn the game, and by the time it was time, when he left out and went to the Bills, I was prepared. And not only just as a football player, man, he really cared as a person to all of us. So, I mean, I hope at running back room you would consider his brothers just because of the bond we had with him and, just the things he instilled in us in the room, not only to be competitive with each other, but to be each other's brothers. That's what some of the things that, we would always talk about in the past, video games and, who would drop a pass, those type of things. I mean, it made a natural competition in the room, and, man, I appreciate him for that because now that I'm in the coaching world, some of them same tactics to prepare young men, man, I'm using the same deals that I had to learn.
Speaking here with Jerome Smith, former Syracuse and NFL running back, now with an opportunity to mold the minds of young running backs at Morgan State as the running backs coach. To be connected to Tyrone Wheatley when you were at Syracuse, you rushed for 1,171 yards in 2012. No one at Syracuse has rushed for 1,000 yards since. I know you had a strong offensive line. You had some good guys there as well. And I remember that I'm pretty sure that you were the one that brought him up, that I think it was the last game of the season or something like that, that when you had rushed for over 1,000 yards and they wanted to interview you in the post-game press conference, you stood in front of the entire offensive line and you had them stand on stage with you. I mean, it's just the amount of respect that you gave. You didn't even give it to yourself. The day that the media wanted to congratulate you, you stood there congratulating the offensive line. So let's discuss that. Your offensive line, let's shout them out a little bit, and the fact that you were the last 1,000-yard rusher at Syracuse.
Absolutely, man. You know, obviously with that offensive line, I mean, we have a really, really talented group in those guys. I mean, you know, now Mackey's become a running back coach himself over at Kent, and I mean, shoot, we had Justin Pugh and, you know, Zach Bain and that group of guys that were really, really smart. And those guys, they had a grasp on, you know, what was going on, because we really, really were put in a good situation from the top down, from having Coach Marone, who was the NFL offensive lineman coach, to, again, having Coach Wheatley. And it speaks volumes that Coach Wheatley had 3,000-yard backs in his 3 years there. 3 different guys, 3 different sizes, you know, 3 different styles of running styles. So, man, he did a really good job at, you know, making our game work for us. And, you know, that's what I could tip my hat to him, and I appreciate him.
And just what that means to you to go back and look at Syracuse. It's 2019, and you're the last time that they had a 1,000-yard back. Just what that means to you, over 1,100 yards in 2012, and knowing that it really hasn't happened. I mean, there's the opportunity that it could, now that Syracuse has a more traditional quarterback in Tommy DeVito, and they have guys like Jarvion Howard and Mo Neal and Jawar Jordan Jr. and all these guys are in the backfield now, and Abdul Adams. So there's a chance that, you know, we could potentially see this again, but just what it means to you to be carrying the torch right now for the last 7 years.
Oh, man, waiting for one of those guys to go and take care of it, man. One of those guys, they'll definitely handle their business this year. I know those guys are looking forward. I know the transfer from Oklahoma, I'm looking forward to, you know, being able to chance to catch them play a bit. It'll be an exciting group, man. One thing we always did as a running back run was, like I said, was make it really competitive. And I know Mo's been there for a bit, and, you know, he's waiting on his big shot, and Strick is out of there now. So it'll be some good fun for those guys. Now,
for you, the hay is never in the barn. And we've heard you say that, and that kind of be your mantra and your piece, that the hay is never in the barn. Bring me into that. Bring me into really the first moment that you said it. When did it all start for you? When did that kind of become your way of telling people, if you want it, you got to go get it?
I was getting ready for that open competition at spring, and with Tyson and Adonis and those guys. And one thing, just about work and working out and stuff like that, we all had team workouts. And, I mean, no matter how hard you work in those team workouts, I understand. It always would be clear to me is all of those guys did that team workout. So now you got to find a way to, you know, honestly get better each day, and you got to nitpick yourself. It's never done. You work on a farm, the work's never done. You always got something to do, whether it's 5 a.m. in the morning or, you know, ending your night off. But it's always work to be done. And that was kind of like just made it my motto and made it something I live by on and off the field. There's always something to work on. I mean, your personality, whether, you know, you want to be a better person, you can always work on it. You think you need to work on kindness, you need to work on a little bit more. Shoot, open the door. Use as many, you know, as many of your mannerisms as possible sometimes. But it's just working on yourself. It keeps you honest.
And, you know, to have that, like you said, you know, it's not just on the football field, but it's in life in general. If you want something, you got to go fight for it. You have to know your worth, and you got to go after it. How do you bring that as the leader now for Morgan State's running backs? How do you let these young men know that the hay is never in the barn? What do you do to teach them from here?
Oh, man, I let those guys know. I mean, you know, NCAA, you got, you know, a certain amount of hours you can be with me, and, you know, a certain amount of hours you can be in the building. But, man, with technology and all these things you guys got now, man, there's nothing for you to pull up clips on your phone or, you know, come over here on your own and check out some stuff. So it's always work for you to be done. It's always work you can get done with your quarterback. I mean, I remember back for a time with, you know, when I was getting that statement going, and when I was getting ready for that starting job, I would call Charlie Loeb at 10 o'clock at night. Hey, Chuck, let's go throw the football a bit. And maybe even if it's for 30 minutes, I got some work in. I talked a little bit better about myself. Nobody else got that work in. And like I said, man, that was one of those deals that made the hay is never in the barn, you know, my motto. I found ways to, you know, get extra work in. Like I said, there's always ways to get work in.
Speaking here with Jerome Smith, who has an opportunity as the running backs coach coming out of Syracuse and heading to the NFL, and spending some time as a coach and molding young minds in recent history here, now going over to Morgan State and reconnecting with Tyrone Wheatley, his former running backs coach at Syracuse. Jerome, you know, you brought that up, that, you know, obviously they could spend a certain amount of time with you as a coach, they could be in practice and do this and that, but it's the extra stuff, the things that they could do whenever they want. They could go throw the ball whenever they want. They can go work out whenever they want. They can watch as much film as they want. Just what you could say about personal responsibility. Because it seems like in today's world, as people become more and more detached and more kind of just in their own world, there's this lack of personal responsibility. This lack, you know, this, I want everything to work out, but I'm not going to put in the work for it. Just what you could say about that, about the fact that, you know, these young men and young women, no matter what they're doing out there in the world, they have control over their destiny, and they can put in as much work as they want to put in. They can make phone calls at 10 o'clock at night and go throw. So just what you could say about the importance of putting in the extra effort that a coach doesn't ask you to do, that a boss doesn't ask you to do, that you just decide to do on your own.
I would tell people, you just can't cheat the grind. And the simplest, man, the work you put in is going to be the work you get out of it. And ultimately, if you don't put the work in, you won't always have it, you know, the results you want. And it'll be times where you put that work in and you still don't have the results you want. But that's one of those deals. That's when the hay is never in the barn. That's when you just got to keep going forward. You got to keep fighting your fight.
You got to keep giving it all to it. So what do you want to say to Tyrone Wheatley? I mean, this is a guy who obviously had success when he was playing in college and in the NFL, and he was just with Jacksonville recently. Now he's with Morgan State. What do you want to say to him? Because, like you said, 3 years at Syracuse, 3,000-yard backs. You got to be one of those guys. Now you're together again. You're running Morgan State together on this staff, and you both obviously respect the game of the running back and respect running the ball and running it successfully. So what do you want to say to him? You know, if he's listening in right now, what would be the words that you would want to share with Tyrone Wheatley?
Oh, man, I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate not only this opportunity, but just everything he's instilled in me from a coach's point of view. And, you know, also as a player, it's not many times where you walk into a situation where your running back coach was an All-American at Michigan and also a 10-year football player, you know, a 10-year pro. So it makes it a total difference, man. And, you know, everything I've said to him about this situation and prior to, and I appreciate everything he's done for me.
That coming from Jerome Smith. The hay is truly never in the barn. And Jerome, as always, you know I appreciate you. Family to me.
Oh, man, I appreciate you, brother.
And I'm thankful that God has been so good in your life. And I know that when you are, you know, here with these young men, I know that, you know, they can trust, these families can trust, you know, these young men in your hands. And I know that you're going to give to them what was given to you, and I know you're going to pay it forward, and I appreciate you for that.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate that.
Well, I'll be talking with you very soon. Jerome Smith, once again, God bless, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. And like I said, I got to, you know, Morgan State, same colors as Cuse, but I got to rock some Morgan State gear now. I got to make sure I make that happen.
Yes, sir, man. We'll have to get you some, man.
Sounds good. Well, take care. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.